Second round of the playoffs begin for the Adrenaline iRacing League. 8 drivers move on, beginning the second round of the playoffs, and they kick things off here at the concrete mile track known as the Monster Mile, Dover International Raceway. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Scott Rankin, Flatout Racing Network, proud to bring you coverage of tonight's event. And Scott, just a couple of weeks ago, we actually covered a race here at Dover and had a lot of takeaways from this racetrack and just how it can get these drivers when they're not expecting it.
If there's a track that you don't want to come to in the middle of playoff season, it's most likely Dover. So, look, it's about risk management, right? We are in a playoff sort of scenario. We are, so pushing forward and trying to put your stamp down and lock yourself into the next round of playoffs is definitely a huge aspect of tonight's racing. Making sure that you do come away with a big points haul to give yourself the best opportunity, even without that win. Big, important part of tonight's playoffs. Look, it's when you come to a track like Dover, you don't want there to be any complications. And when you come to Dover with the playoffs, there are a lot of complications.
Two of our playoff contenders won during the round of 12. And thus were able to lock themselves up spots here into this round of 8. We did have a non-playoff contender win at Talladega last week, but we do have playoff contenders starting on the inside of the front row. Bronson Stafford alongside of 7-time winner Shane Tyrion. Obviously, Shane's been kind of the favorite coming here into the playoffs, but a lot of drivers here that still want to have a shot at it. And if you win here today, Scott, there's a lot in the line. The fact that you get an automatic ticket into that season finale, into that Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, just not having that result hanging over your head. You can show up next week and you can have a horrid week. That's fine. And your championship hopes will still be very much alive. Well, here we go.
Green flag out, 200 laps here at Dover. There's not going to be any stage breaks, so consider it a bit of an endurance race here today as Shane Tyrion on the top side. Looks like he might get the advantage off of turn 2. Stafford continues to battle on the inside line. That's teammates at Luminary Motorsports looking to see who's going to lead this first lap of the day.
Yeah, it's just, they're fighting away for it. They'll settle in. They'll know as well, You mentioned it. It is an endurance race. You got to settle yourselves in. You got to make sure that you're comfortable. And Miles is getting hungry, I think. But fingers crossed for these guys that they're going to use their heads just a little bit. They're 3 wide in the back.
They definitely are. That, I believe, was around the 13th position. Eric Stamp was in the middle of that, along with Alex Walter, Spencer Hardison. And they've got their own little group of 5 back here where they were doing that 3-wide racing. As up towards the front, battle's going to be around the 4th position. Tom Bourne hounding the back bumper of Trenton Jump. Mentioned the fact that 8 drivers move on to this second round of the playoffs, including Shane Tyrion and Bronson Stafford. Also, Braxton DeWeese running in 3rd. He won at Iowa a couple of weeks ago to lock himself into this next round. Trenton Jump, who right now runs in 4th. He, along with rookie Joshua Altis, keep an eye on him. He's the only rookie so far to advance into the next round of the playoffs. Logan Brakey, Tom Bourne, aforementioned, and Eric Stamp. They are all your 8 remaining playoff drivers here for this 3-race round of 8.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been a long season. The guys have been going head-to-head, and some of them made it, some of them didn't. Look, that's just NASCAR. That's just the crux of any sport. I mean, There's definitely tonight. There is 8 drivers who are going to have a different race to everyone else around them. And I mean, sometimes that's what you want at the back end of the season. You just want to sit down, you want to come out, you want to show your wares, and just have a little bit of fun. So for the rest of the guys that are out here, they're still out here. They're still going for a win, because if they can steal that away and a teammate can pick up a whole bag of points, or if they can potentially generate a situation where they can hold up, somebody else that's fighting for playoff spots. There's a lot of stories to play out during a playoff season.
There's the 5 of Joshua Altis. He is currently 8th position behind Tyler Stooksbury. Stooksbury, unfortunately, was one of the 4 drivers that did not advance into the round of 8 last week. He was eliminated along with Spencer Hardison, Austin Jordan, and Matt Dyer. But we see, obviously, with it being Memorial Day weekend, got some cars out here rocking the patriotic schemes as well. Saw the 96 of Alti Gray back there with the U.S. Navy on his 96. And running second place there is Shane Tyrion. I was a little confused, had to get a little bit of background information about this. Shane Tyrion, first off, thank you to him for his service, formerly out of the United States Navy, but he's got the United States Marines on his race car. The reason being, tonight he is sponsored by The Cage, a local, I believe it's a local bar in his hometown, and the owner of that bar is out of the United States Marine Corps, hence the United States Marines on his number 38 Toyota here tonight.
Thank you very much for your service, Shane, as well. So, and to all the vets and whatnot that are both in the field and watching the broadcast this evening, you look, I may be an Australian, I may be from across the ditch, but I can certainly recognise that that it definitely does take a lot to serve for your country as well. So, thank you very much for your service. Something I do want to point out: can we cross the elephant in the room off the list early? Bronson Stafford and an FRN paint scheme. Look. We're gonna discuss it. We're gonna get it out of the way so that it's handled. Look, I don't know as much of the background as you do, Seth, but what I have been told, cars with FRN paint schemes and the FRN logo on them tend to crash and burn coming out of the last corner on the last lap. So, good luck, Bronson.
Yeah, this was actually a topic that was talked about pre-broadcast as well, with a bunch of the Luminary guys, and the fact that really only one driver has ever put an FRN car in victory lane in an iRacing event, and that was an NIS race, I believe, at Daytona, courtesy of Joshua Personette. But since it was an NIS race, not necessarily considered an official race win. So, as far as an FRN car going to victory lane in a league race, so far, there is a 0 in that win column. Bronson Stafford trying to see if he can be the one to put a crooked number in that category here this evening. But Shane Tyrion's been fast. He was fast in practice, and Tom Bourne just moved into the third position. So Luminary 1, 2, 3 here, about 15 laps in.
I was just going to say, did Tom Bourne actually catch the wall coming off of 1 and 2 on the last lap? I think he did. Shane's obviously recognizing that right now he just wants to cycle a little bit further back and just work with a fair few of these guys and just save up some rubber, you know. He's moved towards that top side, and you can definitely see that he's not quick at the moment. So remember a couple things about this league as well. It's a fixed setup. A lot of these guys really enjoy the fixed setup. And there is a reason for that. It's basically, it takes away the guesswork of trying to really, well, I say guesswork. The best of the best drivers, it's not really guesswork. They know what they're doing, they know what they're chasing, and they're pretty good at locking it in. But for the rest of the guys, the rest of us mere mortals, we struggle to get a setup together. We struggle to learn how to adjust the car properly, and a fixed setup league takes away all of that requirement and allows you to be in the same setup as everyone else. Now, different people react different ways to fixed setups. Ultimately, what a fixed setup asks of you as a driver is it says, hey, everyone's in the same machinery, everyone's in the same car, you are the difference. You are the differing factor. You are the one that's making the adjustments, you are the one that is driving the car, and there is nothing else that separates you from everyone around you. Do you manage your tires better? Do you manage short run speed better? Do you manage to get a better qualifying lap in? These are all the questions that get asked when you're driving a fixed setup.
Hey, you see the 38 of Shane Tyrion starting to actually drop back there. He's now fallen to the 6th position. Tyler Stooksbury got around him just a couple of laps ago. You asked about Tom Bourne possibly getting the wall. I believe that he and Shane Tyrion both have gotten the wall at some point in this race, which is not really surprising because
Did Shane just get it again? I think Shane may have just gotten the wall again off of 1 and 2. Either he just very, very lightly tapped it, or he just barely missed it. And he actually checked out the 2 cars behind him as well. So
yes, definitely lost momentum, no doubt about that. And the thing is, I'm not surprised with some of these guys hitting the wall this early on, because you mentioned about being a fixed setup. Well, I found out that apparently the setup very tight on the long run, which means the car not able to turn off of these corners. And usually at Dover, the way that this track is designed, those sweeping corners off of 2 and 4, the car wants to ride up towards the wall. Well, if it's not going to turn, it's going to ride up into the wall, and that's something that these drivers have to kind of adapt to as the run goes on. And Looks like maybe Bronson Stafford might be dealing with that tight condition because Tom Bourne has been able to get around him for the race lead.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's Tom Bourne's basically, what was I just talking about? Looking after your tires, adjusting the way that you drive the fixed setup. The setups are always available to the drivers. They get them in the car, they lock them in, right, nice and early. So being able to practice and do long runs is definitely available to these guys. It looks to me like not just Tom Bourne, but I'm also looking at Braxton DeWeese has done a lot of work here as well. And I mean, we've commentated Braxton DeWeese in a couple other leagues as well, and he's just been on an absolute huge turn of form lately. And I think tonight's going to be another big turn of form. He's got a lot of laps in a car at Dover in the very, very recent history. So, look, this is another strong showing from Braxton. I would be surprised if he doesn't get around Tom Bourne here again as well.
You got Braxton DeWeese right now in second. His teammate Caleb Smith back there in the 10th position. FRN pulling double duty here tonight. You'll see both those drivers later on this evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as the Clutch Drop Cup Series continues on their schedule this evening at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. But for the moment, Braxton DeWeese trying to pick up what would be, I believe, his second win of the season here in the Adrenaline iRacing League. And we're going to actually just go on board here with Braxton for a moment because one of the unique features about this track of Dover in particular that people may not necessarily recognize, it's almost like a roller coaster ride every lap. A lot of elevation change. You have that dip down into turns 1 and 3. You ride in that valley all the way to 2 and 4, but then there's actually an elevation, like an uphill incline, when you head onto the front and back straightaways. So these drivers are constantly having to deal with the car wanting to kind of bottom out when they go into these corners.
Yeah, look, it is a big feature of the track. It's, catching the wall on the exit of 1 and 2. 3 and 4 you can manage a little bit better. It's, each driver to their own, but I normally find that I have the most trouble coming through 1 and 2, just the way that the hump is down there. So to go from a flatter banking to a steeper banking, let's talk about the design and creation of the racetrack a little bit here, as we did talk a couple weeks ago about it during Clutch Drop Cup. Means that there is a rise. So as the bottom has to come up to meet the top, right? Because the top's got, the banking's basically got to flatten itself back out. That creates a hump in the road. The hump in the road unloads the car. Coming down over the hump once again to get into the valley of the corner, it unloads the car again. It can make the car loose. The car can break traction, How many times have we seen guys slide up and slap the wall in the middle of the corners because they just completely and utterly broke traction? They're loose through most of the corner. They're trying to catch it, and then they're in the fence before they can even realize. So, yeah, and the other thing it does do is it puts a lot more load on that right front tire, because what's the one tire that as you come into that hump that gets the load the heaviest first? Right front.
Absolutely. So that just makes that tight condition even worse. And then you also kind of couple back in if you're running in somebody's wake, not able to get clean air to the nose. That's going to tighten up the car even more on corner exit also. You saw there, I think that was Bronson Stafford getting out of shape off of turn 2. Fortunately, there is quite a bit of room down there on the inside before getting to that inside wall, so he was able to gather it back up, but he's under fire from Trenton Jump and Tyro Stooksbury. It's interesting looking here at this round of 8, because if you look back at the round of 12, I mean, my goodness, these guys had their work cut out for them. They started out at the tire-killing Darlington, which obviously certain that a number of them left with the patented Darlington Stripe souvenir. Then you go to the short track of Iowa, and then to determine who were going to be the 8 drivers to move on, you went to the wild card super speedway race of Talladega. Now, maybe a little bit more calmer of a round here in the second round of the playoffs here at Dover. Then you got the 1.5 miles of Las Vegas the following week, and then the 2-mile speedway / super speedway of Michigan. But if you look at those 3 particular racetracks here in the second round, I would have to think that most of the preparation would come into today's race.
Yeah, look, I mean, definitely the other 2 options, they flow a little bit more, and they're a little bit easier. If you talking in terms of difficulty level, yeah, Dover is probably definitely the hardest to drive cleanly and consistently, and it does demand a lot more of the driver as well, especially for guys that are running on direct drive wheels. It's going to put a lot of force through your hands. I mean, can we just talk about, like, sim racing as a whole, and the toll that it can take. A lot of people don't recognize the toll that it takes on your body. You know, so when you're preparing for a playoffs, and you're in championship contention, you're gonna do a lot of prep work. You're gonna do a lot of driving all of the time to make sure that you're in tip-top shape. And when you show up at a racetrack like this, that you're in contention, and you're in contention for a very good reason, because you've done the groundwork. The load that goes through some of these drivers' hands, you know, the load that goes through their legs and whatnot. I've just recently upgraded my pedal set. Do you know what I've done? I've put on probably a couple pounds worth of muscle mass in my legs, just moving up to heavier load cells. I haven't upgraded my wheel yet. I'm still on a baseline wheel. You know, some of these guys out here will have direct drive wheels. Some of them will have VR. So their necks will be stronger from looking around all the time. You know, there's a lot of load that goes through these guys, and Dover is definitely a track that is very, very demanding on the driver. And right now, Braxton DeWeese is showing that he's got to turn a pace.
Yeah, it looked like that time off of 4, Tom Bourne's car starting to tighten up on him. Braxton DeWeese got a nice run down the front straightaway, putting the pressure on Tom Bourne. It may be more of a case here of the 15 waiting for the 54 to slip up rather than trying to make a move. He does look like he is a little bit faster, but he's got to time the pass correctly here. That might have been a little bit of a late move to the inside. Tom Bourne saw him, though. He's going to give him that lane. DeWeese looks like he will be taking the lead off of turn number 2, but to kind of piggyback off what you were talking about, how these drivers have to set them up, themselves up physically, you know, last season we did not run Dover. We did run Dover back in season 1, but last year, even if we ran Dover, we had stage cautions that these drivers were able to look forward to. Here tonight, there are no stage yellows. They had to prepare themselves that they could be in for 200 laps of green flag racing from flag to flag, and that's asking a lot of a driver at a track like this, as you mentioned, that's so physically demanding.
Oh God, yeah. And I mean, you add pit stops into that as well. You know, so there's a lot to it. I mean, a lot of people, especially being an Australian, whereby we do a lot more circuit racing, a lot of people look at me and they ask me, you know, Scott, how can you do this? Like, surely this gets boring. Surely there's not a lot to it. And you tell them, look, managing traffic, the racing's so close. So not only are you mentioning car versus track, managing car versus track. You're managing car versus car. You're managing car versus tire. You're managing driver versus tire. You're managing driver versus steering inputs. Are you running a slower steering axis? Are you having to turn that wheel a little bit more? Yes, you're going to save yourself a little bit more tire, but that means that every single time you go into a corner, you're turning that wheel a little bit more. It does get fatiguing when you are looking down a straight, when you're trying to pick up braking markers. The track changes throughout the run. The tires are changing throughout the run. It is very, very difficult to drive these cars at this speed for an extended period of time. So, you know, physical training aside, there's also a really big mental aspect to it, and I'm pretty sure the FRN guys know that quite well as well, because I'm sure that their endurance racing attempts haven't gone the way that they wanted as well, both on the circuit racing, and that's a whole different kettle of fish, you know. So look, it's managing everything, let alone the fatigue. These guys are going to be completely different drivers in about 100 laps time.
I'll tell you who's been able to manage pretty well here in these first 40 laps as far as his good years are concerned. That's Braxton DeWeese. He has opened up nearly 8.5 tenths of a second to this battle now for second place between Tom Bourne and Bronson Stafford. And to be honest, neither one of those cars look all that steady out of the corner. Both of them seem to push up about a half groove of where they're running when they get into 2 or 4. They've kind of stacked up the second back to around 5th position. Trenton Jump and Tyler Stooksbury there as well. Shane Tyrion just in with these guys, and that's a long ways back there to 7th place, Joshua Altice.
Bronson Stafford got a huge run off of turn 1 and 2, and he basically just got underneath Tom Bourne before they even exited 2 and made sure that he was there, and he got it done. So he's going to get it on by. Trenton Jump's going to grab the P4 spot. So all of a sudden, P3 spot for Trenton Jump, and all of a sudden a lot of changing going on. And the rear end of this battle pack as well, just the overtaking moves happening at the front of it's causing overtaking moves to happen at the rear.
Shane Tyrion now to the inside of Stooksbury. That's for the 5th position. And just to give an idea of just how much the times have fallen off since we started this race, 2 seconds difference between Braxton DeWeese's lap back in the beginning stages of this race and the lap that he just put down. So I don't know if that's necessarily all tire wear, just the fact that now these cars are starting to tighten up, so there's a lot more feathering of the throttle off the corner, but obviously a combination of both have made these speeds slow down quite a bit. And now Braxton DeWee's going to deal with another aspect. It's only a mile in length, so it's not a short track, but it's kind of like one in the fact that you catch up to the traffic pretty quickly at the tail end of the pack. That was Robert Kenny, who we can clearly see with that right front damage has been in the wall a couple of times. He's now going to fall a lap down to the 15.
Yep, so unfortunate for Robert Kennedy, obviously struggling. I mean, a lot of these guys are definitely struggling right now. He talked about it, throttle management. I think the bigger aspect when you come to Dover is utilizing the brakes evenly and correctly over an extended period of time, because that's not easy. I mean, the method that you brake, do you brake with your right foot? Do you brake with your left foot and leave your right foot alone just for throttle inputs? Are you blipping the throttle as well? Are you activating the clutch? There's a lot that goes on through these drivers' heads, and I mean, you are running fourth gear, so that clutch pedal becomes a lot less different. So do you shift? Is that a decision that you consciously make? Do you move that left foot across and have it just working on the brake pedal? Because that leg is going to get a lot of working out. But then again, that's a little bit less load off of your throttle pedal foot. That's a little bit more consistent that you can be with that foot, and it takes a little bit of training, So if they would have made this decision, they would have made it months ago, and they would have adjusted already. So. But traffic's going to be a huge aspect of the race here tonight. We're coming up on it now. There's actually multiple cars starting to come right back into the picture as well. Yeah, it's a short track, but yeah, you're going actually quite fast, and I think we're actually about to see our first round of pit stops.
Yeah, that's the 12 of Caleb Smith coming down pit road very slowly. Went to the apron in the entrance of turn 3 and coasted all the way around the apron to get to pit road. That looked a little too conservative to me. I'm not certain that maybe he might not have something a little bit more sinister going wrong with that 12 car other than just coming down for a regular green flag pit stop. We also saw the 53 out of Color Till Motorsports of Eric Stamp go a lap down to Braxton DeWeese. Now, should mention about the tires that these drivers have. 6 sets were given them for this race, the set that they started on, and 5 sets waiting for them on pit road. But, I mean, if we continue on the trend that we're on right now, we're a quarter of the way through this race. They may only need 2 more sets after they make this upcoming pit stop.
How long can these guys go, do you think? I don't know. It's curious. Can we stretch it into a 2-stop race? We might be able to stretch it into a 2-stop race as well, because we've only got to go, what, at least 70 laps?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to crunch the numbers in terms of fuel. I do know it's an 80% fuel load.
Tanner Johnson has just come on the radio, said he's coming to pit road this time as well, so he's going to come down and grab some fresh tires. I mean, the benefit is, it is a shorter track, so there's 2 ways to have a look at this. Yeah, you can lose more laps by going to pit road early. The 5 cars down low running slow as well.
I think he might have missed pit road. I think he might have been planning to come to pit lane, missed the pit road entrance, and that's why he was slow in the front straightaway. That's playoff contender, rookie playoff contender, Joshua Altice.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Look, yeah, so there's a couple different strategies, right? I mean, you can take that extra stop.
Oh, he missed it again. Sorry to cut you off, but he missed it again. 0 for 2 for Altice getting onto pit lane.
That is going to be just basically night over at that point. I mean, he's trying to come in. He's lost all that time to slow the car down. Oh man, he's a lap down before he gets to the lane, so.
That's got him now -1. He'll certainly lose another lap, maybe 2, when he eventually does get to pit road. And I'm wondering if drivers are taking notice of this. I mean, maybe the conservative route onto pit road might be the best way to go. Make sure that you get all 4 tires to the left side of that orange square you see there. That is technically the commitment cone for these drivers to get onto pit lane. If you go over it, it is a penalty. If you go to the right of it, it is a penalty. You've got to get that car woed down to pit road speed and to the left side of that commitment cone to avoid a penalty. And obviously no penalty will take place for Altice because he wasn't able to get down there to that orange block, but obviously he's paying the price for all of that track position that he lost with missing pit road twice. He has actually made it onto pit road this time.
I was just going to say a couple of things. It's 23-second lap, remember, so 23, 24 seconds. So if you can get out there and you can boogie and you can really try and hunt it down, 3 seconds of fall off across the stint, there is a chance that Mr. Altice can get himself back up there with a correct strategy, but he needs to execute, and the execution has been poor in the last 2 laps. So right now, he needs to have. If he makes another mistake, that you can pretty much say tonight's over for him.
Take a look here at the difference of speed between fresh tires and old tires. Robert Kenny was on pit road about 5 laps ago. He just blew by his teammate Bronson Stafford, now going to try to go to the outside of third place running Tyler Stooksbury. That just shows you the grip that you've got when you've got those fresh Goodyears. And going back to your point about, making it a 2-stop race, I think that it is in the realm of possibility. The question is, though, how much are your tires going to be screaming at the end of those 2 runs?
Yeah, but remember, that's if a caution happens at any stage, the guys that are going on the the extra stop, they're in trouble because they're never going to be able to get those laps back. All of the benefit that they made by by coming to pit road and throwing an extra set of Goodyears at the cars is nullified because they don't get the opportunity to get that extended run that they need to get those laps back. So right now, is what Joshua Ortiz is hoping is that these guys stay out for another 10 to 15 laps right here. He gets both of his laps back, plus all the time that he's already made up.
Oh! Another driver that missed pit road. 54 of Tom Bourne. Shane Tyrion's in the 34. Like the 63 of Alex Walter missed pit road. My goodness, there's a lot of drivers having issues with pit road entry here.
So yeah, I mean that's unheard of. Like you don't see that, just doesn't happen like that. So it's really interesting. So basically, Shane Tyrion has said, if I can go 70 laps on the next 2 stops, I'm gonna make all of my gains right here.
And now Tom Bourne's hit the pit wall on his second attempt to get to pit lane. He will get onto pit road, but a lot of damage on that Player 1 Toyota Camry now.
And you gotta remember, there's no fast repairs here, so all of that damage is stuck. That's it. He's done. There's a yellow. We got the caution.
Eric Stamp in the 53, possibly. He apparently looked like he missed pit lane. Wondering if he might have spun it trying to get it onto pit road.
Okay, this tire's blowing. This tire's blowing. They're just talking about it in race comms, and it looks like it's not the outside tires that are blowing. It's apparently the left side tires. Interesting.
Wow. And there's the spin with Eric Stamp. Oh, and then that's the 94 of Gilberto Javier Gomera that actually went up and hit the outside wall trying to avoid the spinning 53. So that brings out the caution. And that is something that obviously a lot of those drivers that had just made pit stops did not want to see, because most of them lost 2 laps here under green flag conditions. They'll be able to take the wave around, maybe get 1 of those laps back with DeWeese and company coming to pit road, but they will more than likely on this next restart be running -1.
I mean, that's just crippled a whole bunch of cars. They're going to have to really play a strategy game now to get back on. They literally have to hope for caution. They don't have any other opportunity now. Interesting. Really, really interesting what's going to happen here, because you got to think, right? There's a fair few guys. How many guys have we seen come to pit road already that have, most of the lead pack kind of got split in half in terms of the guys that stayed out and were running the long run. And I mean, at that point, I would have been banking that this race would have been green. So, okay, so there's a few things going on. Drivers are talking about their tire wear in race comms at this point in time. Every single person is saying that their tires remaining percentage on their wear was under 30%.
Wow.
Over 60 laps. So honestly, if you want to run a safe race, if you want to run a clean race, the strategy that the 5 car is on is probably the correct one. However, you're going to get scenarios like this every single pit window, because people are going to be pushing their tires to the back end of their pits. But we may see an adjustment in driver pace because of that. They may try and back the pace back down.
That's certainly building a lot of storylines here. We haven't even entered into the second half of this race. Our first caution here at Dover. At the time that yellow flag came out, I believe only 6 drivers were on the lead lap. Actually, correction, 7 drivers were on the lead lap. Now, a couple of them have fallen a lap down after staying on pit road for repairs, including the 94 of Gilberto Javier and the 53 of Eric Stamp, who had that spin. Waiting to see confirmation on who the lucky dog would have been. I think it might be the 9 of Spencer Hardison, but I'm not 100% certain because, as you just mentioned right there, right now only 5 drivers scored on the lead lap.
Yeah, that's incredibly curious. I'm 100% not sure of where our lucky dogs come from, and like you said, there's a lot of guys that are on pit road. Gilberto Gomera currently, I'm showing him scored as on the lead lap, but I'm not confident in that at all.
Right now,
there's a lot going on here.
That 94 has been on pit road for almost now going on 2.5 minutes, getting repairs done. Right now, on my telemetry being scored 1 lap down, but he's obviously going to, I think, lose a 2nd lap here as the race leader behind the pace car is hitting the start-finish line.
Yeah, so he's definitely I'd say that's going to be an extended stay on pit road for him. So take him out of the equation. He's gone to 2 laps down on my scoring, but that's most likely 3 laps down. I'm showing 5 cars on the lead lap. Seth, I don't know what this is, but apparently somebody somewhere said that it's a race. It doesn't look like I'm on a race right now, but who knows what'll happen.
And we had 6 drivers take the wave around there. Eric Stamp, Alex Walter, Alti Gray, Shane Terrian, and Tom Bourne. This all puts them now only 1 lap down. Joshua Altis went around to get one of his laps back. He will be -2 on this restart. Those 5 drivers you mentioned on the lead lap: Braxton DeWeese, Trenton Jump, Tyler Stooksbury, Bronson Stafford, and Logan Brakey. 3 of them are playoff contenders, and it's just kind of really narrowed it down, at least for the time being, of who would be the drivers in contention to lock themselves up a Final 4 spot if they're able to win here today.
I mean, yeah, that definitely has completely and utterly changed the perspective of the race for a lot of these drivers. Now, have a look at the guys that I wanted to keep my eyes on are Shane Terrian, and those guys that are actually back there. Tom Bourne, I mean, did he even get back out? Because he took a lot of damage from there. I'd be significantly worried about the amount of damage that car's dealing with right now. But I tell you what, the chances of an FRN car winning this race, I think, have just gone up quite dramatically.
It definitely could have. As we're looking here, this is actually an important battle on the track. It's not for the lead, but it would be if the caution came out for the lucky dog. Spencer Hardison had it. Tanner Johnson just went around and took it. That's 6th position, battling for the free pass spot there, folks. That's just how much that caution turned this race on its head in terms of drivers that had already been to pit road for green flag pit stops and drivers that might have been just moments away from coming to pit road. I think the 61 of Bronson Stafford, either he got the wall or he's playing the strategy you just talked about there, Scott, about backing down the pace a ton to try and preserve those left side tires.
Yeah, because think about it, right? Let's literally talk about this. You can go gangbusters right now. You can really throw the car around. You can try and leverage all of that advantage, but if you don't, then you're gonna immediately, the tires are just gonna slowly come to you. I mean, it's gonna start out being minuscule amounts. It's gonna start moving to a little bit more, maybe 0.1 of a second, 0.2 of a second, 0.3 of a second. The longer the run goes on, the more that you look after those tires. And you take yourself and you take the risk level down a whole bunch, so.
Watching this battle for the lead, Trenton Jump was on the back bumper of Braxton DeWeese. DeWeese actually the last time around, not this previous time, but the time before that, ran his fastest lap of the race. Both these drivers ran the 22.3s last time by. This time by, it was in the 22.5s. That's 0.2 of a second right there in just the span of 1 lap that they were losing just on 1 lap on these Goodyears.
Wow, man. I mean, that's just, that's phenomenal. So, look, I mean, it's so difficult being a commentator in a race like this because there's so many different stories now. I think there's a fair few guys. There's somebody down on the apron. The 34 car was just on the apron. Robert Kenny. I think he saved it. I think it's all good, but he was down on the apron. He was all locked up.
Does keep it straight as Alex Walter in 63 gets around him, so no caution will come out. Kenny able to continue, albeit 2 laps down in the 14th position. As this battle for the race lead, it's going on 4 seconds ahead of the 3rd place battle. That's where you've got Tyler Stooksbury. He's got his hands full with the lap machine of Shane Terrian, who's now moved into the free pass position. Logan Brakey catching a break, pun intended there, I guess, with that caution coming out. Now up in the top 5 in 4th place. He was on the back bumper of Tyler Stooksbury for 3rd, but now he looks in his rearview mirror, and there's Bronson Stafford hunting him down for 4th.
Yeah, and, I'm just listening into a few of the guys' comms. Stookie and Brakey and Bronson Stafford were all talking about how scared they... Sorry, Stooksbury, Brakey and Stafford were all talking about how scared they were on their tires. It was actually Bronson Stafford who was on the radio saying, his tires, his left side tires... Go on, have a guess at the percentage, Seth.
You were talking about 30%. I'm going to say probably just based on the fact he was out in front for most of that run. I'll say he was probably down maybe around the 15 to 20%.
Okay, so let's work from the outside of the tire into the middle, because the middle's where the most wear happens. That's where you're generating most of the grip. 4, 2, 1.
Holy cow! That
is a blown tire. That is basically a blown tire.
How is he still out there? How is he not on pit road 5 laps prior?
The caution flag came out at the exact right time for him. So, look, that is how close to the edge that Bronson Stafford was running.
And I gotta wonder, with that also combined with the fact that we were told that the setup was really tight the longer the run went on, could that have played a huge factor into why we saw so many drivers who I'm sure have experience here getting onto pit road at Dover were missing the pit road entry?
100% it would. I mean, look, you practice pit stops, right? You practice green flag pit stops. That is definitely a huge, huge part of, learning to race these cars, putting the time and the effort in. What you don't practice is coming to pit road with a flat tire. There's no way you can practice that. Do you know the amount of time and effort it takes to get tires to go flat and come to pit road? It is literally the first time it happens. It is the first time it's happening for you, and it'll happen on a live race. It is so different. The car does not want to do what you want it to do. It's a weird feeling, because all of a sudden the steering wheel kind of goes light, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy. You're just like, what the hell is happening? Is my wheel breaking? Is this thing freaking out? What's going on over here? No, that's just a flat tire. It's just a feeling of it. It's just a really, really weird feeling. And then you go to put the brakes on, and they kind of don't work. Everything just locks up. And if anyone that's ever driven a car with locked rear wheels will know, the thing just wants to pivot on you. Either the fronts lock up, and it just plows straight on, or it just wants to spin.
Alright, so with all that being said, and based off the numbers you just gave me that we had there with Bronson Stafford, that was about a 70-lap run before we had that caution come out. You talked about the possible two-stop strategy. If these guys are able to, which they are, go to about lap 135 to maybe 145, somewhere in that range, they should be able to make it the rest of the way with no yellow flag from here to the checkers. The question is, though, based off of the numbers we know of what the tires looked like at the end of a green flag run, closing in on completing that cycle of green flag pit stops, are drivers willing to run that risk?
I mean, yes, if they do a lot of tire management, it's doable. Like, there was guys that were saying that their tires were up in the 30s. One guy said he hadn't gotten any one of his tires down below the 40% mark. So look, it is definitely doable. The drivers just have to make that recognition and make that adjustment, and they're talking about it in-game comms. It's something that is right at the forefront of their mind. What are they gonna do? If they split this final stage into 3, they are safe. They are quick. They can push the car. They've got the ability to battle for it. But the risk is high. Look at every single car in this field who's fallen a lap, 2 laps down because they took pit stops under green flag running, then got that caution. Guys are popping tires. If I was in a car, I was in this race, I'm saving tires, man. The risk is just too great.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And, right now, I'm not necessarily certain what the strategy is for Braxton DeWeese and Trenton Jump. They've been able to continue to maintain almost 4 seconds back to third place. It does look like their pace has backed down, but not quite to the extent of drivers behind them. So I'm almost wondering if their strategy was open up as big a gap as possible, then start saving, while everybody else kind of out of the gates when we had the green flag come out for the restart, if they were of the strategy of, you know what, let's start saving right here, right now. And that's why we start to see the difference in lap times between the top two and the rest of those drivers on the lead lap. A couple of drivers out of the race. We saw Caleb Smith came to pit road very early on. He is going to finish in 16th. And Gilberto Javier, who pounded the outside wall trying to avoid Eric Stamp's spin out at turn 4, he's also gone to the garage area, will finish in 15th. But let's not forget, this is a playoff race, and I'm seeing so many drivers right now that are even outside of the top 10 that are playoff contenders. Rookie Joshua Altice down there in the 13th position. You've got Eric Stamp, who came into this race 8th of the 8 that moved on. He's right now just barely hanging on to a 10th place position. I mean, there are drivers that are more than likely going to have to look at Las Vegas and Michigan in the next 2 weeks as a comeback race to get into the Final Four. Braxton Deweese now has a challenge from Trenton Jump in the 46. Jump's going to back off there, though, and that's kind of a position here for the 46 as well. I mean, you know, Trenton Jump looks like he might have a slightly faster race car than Braxton Deweese, or else he might not be backing up his pace quite as much as the 15, but we know that when you go to make a pass here at Dover, you're going to use up an awful lot of tires in the attempt to do so. If the 15 doesn't let him right on by, Trenton Jump might not have a lot of tire left at the end of this green flag run as he would like.
I mean, Trenton, you know what helps, Seth, is when you try and talk to your co-commentator that you unmute your microphone. That is, look, it's...
That's commentator 101.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, even the best of us make mistakes sometimes. Yeah, look, I mean, you know, and the other side of that story, the attempting to overtake at the top of the rankings as well, is it's kind of like you got a couple laps to have a crack, you build that tire temperature up, all of a sudden the car starts handling differently, you've got to really back that pace off again, and then you've got to build up and have another run at him. But in the meantime, the lead car's not doing anything to his tires. So, look, from Trenton Jump's standpoint right now, maybe a little bit more patience. He's still right there in terms of him with the pace. It's much for muchness between the two of them. So, look, I was having a look back through the pack again and sort of having a comparison. Take a look at a few of these guys that are in playoff contention as well. You know, you've got Jumps, not necessarily Trenton Jumps in the playoff standings. Stooksbury is not. Bronson Stafford and Logan Brakey are both in playoff contentions. Now, let's talk about the theoreticals from these guys. Let's throw some hypotheticals out there. These guys could come out here right now, they could burn off their tires, and then they run a huge risk. They're in playoff contention. Right now, we don't get another caution. They finish top 5. They don't have to do anything. All they need to do is just have a consistent race, not have a stellar race, but just have a nice, clean, consistent, smooth race. And they get themselves top 5. All of a sudden, they're looking at being inside that top 4. That, honestly, that's the race I'd be running.
Yeah, and you know, looking here at Shane Terrian right now, first car 1 lap down, would get the lucky dog should we have another caution from here to the end of this race. But he's holding down the 6th position. Now, the problem for Shane Terrian, despite the fact he's had 7 trips to victory lane this season, his most recent taking place back at Darlington during the round of 12, when the round of 8 points were reformatted, everybody came into this round tied with 3,000 points apiece. There's no bonus points added in this round. So, right now, with where Shane Terrian is, he would be 5th in the playoff standings, behind Deweese, Jump, Stafford, and Brakey. However, if he can at least keep other drivers like Tom Bourne and Eric Stamp behind him, let's not forget, if we have 3 playoff contenders win every single one of these races in the round of 8, one driver is going to make it into the Final Four on points. So, you know, these guys, while right now they're battling to try and get back on the lead lap, they still theoretically have something to race for, that final position in the Final Four points-wise, if they don't find victory lane either here tonight or in the upcoming 2 races at Vegas or Michigan.
Yeah, there's 2 races. You've got to get yourselves in, guys. Points, 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 points. It's all about consistent finishes. You don't win. You talk about the Michael Schumachers and Fernando Alonso's of their eras. Yeah, those guys are big. They're aggressive, and they do provide some flashy finishes. But you know what they did in the weeks when they weren't winning races? They made sure that they kept themselves on the podium. They made sure that a bad week for them was still a top 5. That's why they won championships. NASCAR is obviously a lot different to that, as I'm sure you guys are all aware with the playoff system, but it does still count. We've got 3 races right in the playoff stage. That means that 3 guys can potentially lock themselves in. 3 separate guys. You know what that leaves? That leaves 5 guys fighting for 1 point spot. Now, it's completely and literally feasible that Braxton DeWeese just comes out here tonight. He wins all 3 races. He moves on his own. That's 3 spots that are open up. But it's also easily able to be somebody that's not inside that top 8 that wins all 3 races during this, which means you've got 4 spots open to points. So, look, I'm playing the numbers game. If I just have a look at the field, and by right, there are some guys right now that Braxton DeWeese has just got this thing covered. He is driving the wheels off this thing. He's driving it quickly, but he's driving it consistently, and he's looking after those tires. He's ticking all the boxes. And some nights you just got to recognize that you've got nothing for those lead drivers. But when you don't, you've got to make sure that you limit the risk. You grab those points where you can.
Braxton DeWeese actually got his first win of the season just a couple of weeks ago at the short track of Iowa. And now at another track with very heavy braking zones, and obviously, as we've documented, a lot of tire fall off out in front here at Dover, trying to lock himself up a spot in the Final 4, which, I mean, that's got to be such a sense of relief for a driver, too, regardless of what the next 2 races are in whatever round of the playoffs you're in, to know that you're going into them, you could start and park and be able to still know, hey, I'm battling for the championship in the season finale at Atlanta.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, who knows? Who knows what happens between now and then? Who knows? And Atlanta is such a different track. If I'm focusing on trying to get myself to the playoffs, I'm picking. I've got to do practice on all 3 weeks. That much is so important. But once I get there, do you know how much extra effort that I'm throwing at Atlanta? I'm throwing it all in. Once you're in, the amount of practice, and the benefit of the playoff system is that it does build the intensity over a couple weeks. 3 weeks ago we had 12. Now we've got 8. Couple weeks time we've got 4, and we've got 1 race to decide it all. There is no better story that NASCAR can build up. That is 100% one of the best ways that you can build it up. Yeah, there's some detractors from the system, and it does have its merits, it does have its fallbacks, but what it does do is create exciting racing the entire way through, and it makes the back end of a championship so exciting. Do you know how many championships in Formula 1 have been decided in the last race? Only a couple over all their years. Do you know how many NASCAR playoffs have been decided in the last race? All of them.
Every single one, and it's interesting, too, because you talk about putting all that preparation into Atlanta. Atlanta, for the first time here in the Adrenaline iRacing League, is going to be the venue for the season finale where the championship will be decided. Back in Season 1, it was Homestead. Last year, it was at Phoenix, and Atlanta, that was actually only on the schedule back in Season 1. I believe it was race 3 of Season 1. Did not make an appearance on the schedule for Season 2. That's where the championship's getting decided in 3 weeks' time. Still out in front is Braxton DeWeese. We are 45 laps into this stint. If he's able to stretch it another 25, maybe 30 laps, I think he'd be good to make it on 1 more pit stop. And we are starting to see that the speeds are backing down to around kind of what we saw during the first run. About a 24 flat was what Braxton ran the last time, by that time a 24-1. But we saw Eric Stamp was on pit road moments ago. Josh Altice in the 5 just now hit pit lane.
Yeah, so there's a few guys just starting to hedge their bets and just go in the opposite direction. I mean, I was actually having a flick through our YouTube comments as well. It actually looks like Atlee Gray ended up with sub 5% on his tires at the last pit stop. So if you're a driver and you're out on track and you're committing to this strategy, you're going to be nervous. Now's the time. Now's the time. You gotta see mistakes start creeping in? Now's the time. The next sort of 20 laps are gonna probably be among the best of the race because, you know, if it's not decided now, it'll be decided in 70 laps time, and occasionally you just gotta get a little bit excited for these chess games. Do these drivers commit? Do they just come in early? If they feel their car start to go, do they just bring it down pit lane? Who knows? We don't know, because we don't know if the tires are gonna make it that far.
And here's the interesting thing, too. I mean, based off of all the team communication, driver communication you were listening to, it sounds like it kind of took a lot of these drivers by surprise, just how much those tires were wearing down. Now, while the caution definitely did benefit the 5 drivers that are currently on the lead lap, since they hadn't pitted yet, well, there's the catch-22. They hadn't pitted yet. Everybody else experienced what the tires felt like with not being able to slow down and turn getting onto pit road. If we end up reaching green flag pit stops for these 5, are they prepared for what they're going to feel trying to get below that commitment box and get onto pit lane?
Yeah. Oh my god. So many scenarios to go through. The other thing to consider is have a look at a guy like Shane Terrian. He's actually done a little bit of a bolt and gotten away from the next driver behind him, who is actually, we're talking about Atlee Gray. That's where he is. He's just in there behind him as well. So it's, I mean, the gap's quite a few seconds. And he did actually pit a little bit before. So you got a fair few guys that pit literally the lap before the last caution. So right on that 60 marker. And we got 5 laps to way there again. So it looks like fuel's good. I think in terms of fuel, you can get at the distance here. I think Shane, if you're gonna pit, you pit now. Tom Bourne actually just made it into pit lane, so he's pulling the pin early, which means he'll 2-stop this to the end of the race now, including his current stop. So there'll be one more stop to go for him. A few scenarios starting to develop, but the benefit for Tom Bourne is, should this go green through this next phase of the race, he's in a really, really solid spot, but he needs that green. Any further cautions, his night is there's no hope.
Absolutely, yeah. He pitted from the 7th position, was running at the time, second car 1 lap down. That is now gone to Atlee Gray, who now moves into the 7th spot, trying to catch up to Shane Terrian for what should be the free pass if we get a caution. Also, we saw the 23 of Tanner Johnson was on pit road. So both of those drivers making some stops, and more than likely, to your point, going to be 2-stopping it from here on out. Got a couple of cars back there behind Braxton DeWeese, though, that were getting out of shape. I think one of them was the 63 of Alex Walter. He was trying to keep the 46 of Trenton Jump in his rearview mirror and nearly lost it on the back straightaway for his trouble.
Yeah, look, you gotta manage the traffic. That is certainly a big ask. I'm actually just keeping my eyes on Bronson Stafford at the moment. Shane Terrian's actually just all of a sudden just really closed up on him. I think Stafford's tires might be about to fall off that car. We might experience a blowout because I think his pace is just starting to completely and utterly fall off a cliff.
If we look right now at the pace of our top 5, about 24.2s, 24.3s is what the top 3 are running. Bronson Stafford's running down in the 24.6s. And Logan Brakey back there, last time by, ran in the 24.9s. So either Bronson's tires are really wearing down, or both he and the 29 are playing ultra conservative with their tires here, and it's showing in the lap times that they're laying down.
Yeah, so look, I mean, risk versus reward factor, we're starting to see who's making their bubbles. I mean, the end result of all of this is that if this continues on for long enough, Stafford may end up a lap down, but it's going to continue on for that extended period of time. Fresh tires starting to make their way through the field as well. Tanner Johnson's on his way past Shane Terrian at this point in time. I just saw... Who was that? Was Tom Bourne make his way past Shane Terrian? So the guys have also, on the older tires, just trying to manage traffic. There's so much This is the hardest part about being a race car driver, is sitting there watching guys fly past you at this point in time and trying to manage all of it.
Here comes the 61 to pit road. Bronson Stafford, Atlee Gray, behind him in the 96. We also just saw Spencer Hardison leaving his pit stall in the 34 of Robert Kenny, pulling into the attention of his team. Trenton Jump from 2nd place is on pit lane.
Yep, so obviously another driver just going, I know where my limits lie, I'm just going to have to pull it in. Bronson Stafford's on pit lane as well, so he's come down pit lane. He said, look, this is too much risk. The car's starting to fall off the wall. Who knows what's going to happen, so...
That was the 29 of Logan Brakey, also on pit lane. So 3 of the 5 drivers that were on the lead lap have now come down pit road.
Oh, there's a car in the grass. On the exit of pit lane.
And that, I believe, might have been Robert Kenny. Yes, it was. As Alex Walter in 63 was on pit road. Kenny, nobody coming around his vicinity as he was out of shape off pit road exit. He gets it back onto the track, continues on, so no yellow flag coming out there. Can you imagine if the caution had come out there? I mean, my goodness, we've already had a caution completely change the landscape of this race back around lap 70. This would have just upped the ante even more for a ton of drivers.
Have a look at Braxton DeWeese, though. I mean, it's just continuing to just manage. Like, it doesn't look like he's forcing his car to do anything. He is basically just saying, all right, where are we going in? What's the limit of these? Oh, he's coming in. He's coming in. So it's a two-stopper. Yeah, there's a two-stop to home.
About 60 laps into this stint for Braxton DeWeese. And coming down with 75 laps remaining. That turns the race lead over now to Tyler Stooksbury. And how much does it nag on a driver? 1 week after getting eliminated, you then have a really good race, maybe even win that following race and think, man, what if I advanced into the next round? I'd be locked into Homestead, but into Atlanta for that season finale, for that championship.
Yeah, but you also got to look at, where he is points-wise within that buffer. And, I mean, he was running second last in the points. He finished his playoffs in stage number 1 of the playoffs at 2,068 points. The only person that he was in front of was Austin Jordan, the rookie, with 2,063. So, I mean, he had to chase down Matt Dyer at 2,085 and beat him, and then the guy ahead of him, and that was 17 points. So that's a lot of points. You're probably looking 20 to 25 points before he would have overtaken the next car. So, I mean, I can't comment on what's happened over the last couple of weeks. I just don't have the knowledge, so for him to be missing out on playoffs, yeah, it's disappointing, but ultimately he's come back out the next week. He's turned the field on its head, and he's gone, look, here is what I should have been, where I should have been. It's frustrating, it's disappointing, but if anything, I want to see that turn into motivation for next season.
He's on pit road. That will turn the race lead over momentarily to Shane Terrian. Terrian just then, going around, got his lap back. He will then take the race lead this time around in the 38 machine, and only 1 lap difference, or actually make that 4 laps difference, between when the 46 of Trenton Jump came to pit road and the 15 of Braxton DeWeese came to pit lane. That has translated to almost 7 seconds between the two, advantage to the 46, who now cycles around to the 2nd position and eventually will take the lead when Terrian hits pit road.
Yeah, I mean, again, more stories starting to tell themselves. But I tell you what, DeWeese is coming for these guys. You got to remember that the 46 has just made a pit stop call. He's come early because he needed to create that overlap, but it's a 4-lap deficit. And Braxton DeWeese definitely was not pushing his tires. He wasn't overworking them. He wasn't being aggressive on them. So I think he's still a lot more left in the tank. He had to come eventually, right? He had to come to pit road eventually. He basically sort of was ticking off the laps in his head, going, look, this is how much I can let him go, and still go and hunt down the win. And he found his margin, and he's gone for it.
Shane Terrian obviously banking on a caution flag to come out and save him. He's now 70-plus laps on his tires here on this run. I think we'll be seeing him on pit road within the next 10 laps, and there he is on pit lane now. Could not make it any further on those Warren Goodyears. This more than likely might move his teammate Tom Bourne maybe into the free pass position, depending on how things play out.
Yeah, there's a good opportunity that we'll actually do that. But for my liking, Shane Terrian's it was Terrian that was still out. Yeah, so Terrian's played himself back into championship hopes here because he's made it a one-stop. Look, I mean, if you're gonna prevent yourself from losing multiple laps down, that's about the best way you can do it.
Trenton Jump, playoff contender, former winner this season. That was back at Kansas Speedway. He'd love to lock himself into the Final Four at Atlanta, but to your point, going to have his fall-off take place a lot quicker than Braxton DeWeese since he pitted earlier. What was a 7-second gap when the pit stop cycled around has now already been cut down by 1.5 seconds, about 5.5, now 5.3 seconds back to the 15 of Braxton DeWeese. And even just looking at the lap times right now, I mean, Trenton Jump ran in the low 23s last time by. Braxton was running the high 22s.
Yeah, so he's coming. He's definitely coming. Now, pit stop strategy this time around. Trenton Jump, Braxton DeWeese, they've both got options in which directions they can go. So, you can split this the final segment of the race into two and just come at the halfway mark of it. Now, for Trenton Jump, you pit on lap 121, so that's 79 laps. So you go 34, 35, sorry, not 34, 35. What's that? 39? 38, 39?
Yeah.
It's 39.40. So you've got two options there. Or what you can do right now is, because you've got the track position and you've got to force Braxton DeWeese to find a way past you, he's going to burn up tires doing that. So which means he's not going to run away from you if he does end up getting past you. So what he can do is he can run, say, 50 laps now, and he's on a 30-lap run to home. Then he's going to be real racy.
I think I find interesting here, if you're looking at the 46 and the 15, with Trenton Jump getting back on lap 1, I believe it was 122, that would have been with a little less than 80 laps remaining. We saw
Can't
that.
make it.
Yeah, Shane Tyrion couldn't even make it 75 laps. Like, he pitted on his 70th lap of his stint. Braxton DeWeese, on the other hand, I mean, he came down pit road on lap 126. I just don't see how either one of them, even if they do back down their pace here on this final run, either one of them being able to make it to the checkered flag. But what about Tyler Stooksbury? He's only on his 10th lap right now, pitted back on lap 129. That would have been just on the cusp of that 70 laps to go window.
He can do it. Yeah, he can do it. Like I said, the other guy that I'm looking at is Terrian. Because Terrian's on a flyer right now. I think Terrian was the last one on the field to pit. Yeah, he was. 131. So it would be 132 by your markings. Look, I mean, different software reads it different ways, right? 132 would have been his last stop. He's in the window. He can make it. And, all of a sudden, if I'm picking anyone to win this race, I think it's Terrian. And you got to remember, throughout this remaining sort of run that we've got developing right now, Terrian's going to be the fastest car in the field for a bulk of this run, because he's pitted much, much later. He's 2 laps down. He's about to go to 1. He's just gone around the outside of our leader. Yeah, he's back to 1 lap down. So he's going to be in the lead when this last cycle of pit stops comes through and comes to its completion. I think Shane Terrian's pulled out a masterstroke here.
And you talk about him being the fastest car right now in this run in the early portions, and that has to happen. Because if he is planning on running this car to the end without coming to pit road again, there's going to be a lot of fall off for him towards the end of this run, when the 46 and 15 will more than likely be down pit road with fresh tires. So right now, what he is basically doing, it may not look like it, but what he's doing right now, he's building a gap. He's building the gap that he is going to have when the top 2 eventually have to come to pit road, and whatever gap he has is what he's going to have to then manage with what could be anywhere from 5 to 15 laps remaining in this race.
Oh, it's going to be more than that. I mean, he's going to... I think he's going to come into assault probably... 15 laps to go. So I think ultimately, when everything cycles out, I don't think he's going to be able to win the race, but he's played himself a masterstroke. And when you talk about the playoff implications here, like, Shane Terrian is coming in, he's got the most wins of the season, he's got the most poles of the season, he's got the most top 5s, he's got the most top 10s, sorry, he hasn't got the most top 10s, that actually belongs to Trenton Jump, just slightly edging him out, and Braxton DeWeese with the most top 5s as well. So, he's playing around the top 3 in terms of playoff standings. Shane Terrian, Braxton DeWeese, Trenton Jump, they're your favourites for getting through. Braxton DeWeese, Trenton Jump, they've had the race of their dreams. They have not had to pull a pit stop masterstroke out. Shane Terrian has been buried. He thought he pulled a pit strategy masterstroke and then got denied by a caution, and he's still in the mix. That is a class driver right there.
And of course, let's not forget, Shane Terrian locked himself into this round of 8 with a victory. If you go back to last season, Shane Terrian went on to win the season finale at Phoenix. So if he's able to pull it off here tonight, pick up his 8th win on the season, lock himself into the Final Four, look out the other 3 drivers that make it into that championship battle when we get to Atlanta Motor Speedway. Interval has closed up to less than a second and a half now from Trenton Jump to Braxton DeWeese. DeWeese has been 2/10 faster the last 5 laps or so, and he is closing up, trying to take the race lead back away from the 46.
A critical lap number for those guys is going to be about lap 160 to 165 is when those guys commit and make their choice. So right now, whilst it's jockeying for position on the racetrack, it's not. It's going to be about just making sure that you're managing the traffic. Robert Kenny's just on the track just in front of them. Braxton DeWeese is coming. The gaps, though, and the time advantage that DeWeese is making over Trenton Jump right now, minimal. It's slowly coming back to a finer and finer margin. But you can guarantee that Trenton Jump, as a part of managing his race and attempting his run to victory, he'll be aware of everything that's going on behind him. He'll be aware of how quickly that guy's closing up. He'll be aware. He can see him. That is, he's on his relative screen. He's in his rearview mirror. He's in the side mirrors. You know, he's back there. And that is going to start to play on it. You can't ignore that as a driver. That is something that you just have to be aware of, and you have to just continually manage it. And Trenton Jump right now is sitting right up underneath Robert Kenny, and he's looking to make sure that he gets past him nice and cleanly. Traffic management, whilst you're trying to manage your race, there's so much going on in Trenton Jump's head right now. You know what? I'd rather be in Braxton DeWeese's shoes.
So Trenton Jump's teammate, Eric Stamp at the 53, he just hit pit lane. I believe this is a regularly scheduled stop for Eric Stamp. He's off sequence from everybody else, 3 laps down to the race leader after some early issues here today. Now, obviously, we've got to keep the Shane Tyrion story in the back of our mind, but based off what we saw in the last round of green flag pit stops, we saw a Trenton Jump, short pit, about 4 laps earlier than Braxton DeWeese. That translated to him getting the race lead by a pretty big margin. Now the roles are somewhat reversed, closing in around that target lap you were talking about. Wow, did you see Trenton Jump with a save off of turn 2, but now Braxton DeWeese is the car in second place. Would he be possibly thinking about coming down pit road a couple laps sooner than the target lap these drivers might be thinking about and leapfrogging Trenton Jump? Because, obviously we know that Shane Tyrion might be planning to stretch it the rest of the way, but if there's going to be someone on fresh tires trying to run him down, it's more than likely going to be one of these two.
Look, if I'm sitting in Braxton DeWeese's shoes, and I'm watching Trenton Jump's car handling the way that it's handling, I want to extend this run, because I know if you have a look at the way that Braxton DeWeese is driving, it's smooth. It's crispy smooth. It's buttery smooth. Man, I would spread this on my toast every day of the week. Look, Vegemite's probably best to go along with it, but hey, that's something for me and not you guys, though. Look at that! Jump is struggling. He's struggling. Braxton DeWeese wants this run to go on long.
This is one of the aspects of Dover that we didn't really get to see a whole lot of because of the fact these drivers were dealing so much with tight condition. Caution!
That decides things.
Rookie Joshua Altice has looped it around on the back straightaway.
Oh.
Less than 50 laps to go. The caution flies for the second time today.
Do you know who this cripples?
Shane Tyrion.
Shane Tyrion, because I think Tom Bourne's in the lucky dog spot. Oh, that is heartbreaking for Shane. He's literally done absolutely everything he can possibly do to give himself the best chance of getting back on that lead lap.
Well, maybe the only other thing that could help Shane Tyrion is the old adage when we get down towards the end of the race, cautions breeding cautions. That might be something that could happen that could get him back on the lead lap. This is what happened off of turn 2. Spencer Hardison in the 9 looking to the inside of Altice, and both of them just kind of ran out of space. Oh! Bronson Stafford in the 61 got a piece.
He net coded through him. I was just listening to the driver comms. He completely blinked through him. So eventually that F1 car had to get some luck. I guess it's been saving all the luck up for today.
My goodness, let's go on board with that FRN machine, because I thought that could possibly be his race over as the 5 spun back up the racetrack. There's the contact, 5 into the inside wall and back up. And you're right, boy, very fortunate there for Bronson Stafford, who's been up in the top 5 all day long. Your pole sitter very well could have been on the end of a tow hook there, less than 50 laps away from the finish.
Miles is getting hungry, boys.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's had the appetizers, right? He's been sitting there going, man, like, what is this restaurant? When is dinner coming out? Well, dinner bell's been rung. I think we are about to see cautions breed cautions because I mean, you got 6 guys now. They're gonna be on the lead lap. Let's talk. Let's talk. Do you take the wave around right now? If cautions breed cautions, Shane Terrian wants. I think right now he wants a 5 to 6 lap run. Why? He wants a tire advantage. He wants to get his lap back right now. I honestly, if am I in Shane Terrian's shoes? I take the wave around here. Just get me back on the lead lap, baby.
Well, in the case of taking the wave around, you would be starting at the back of the pack. And you run more of a risk that the track could get blocked up, nowhere to go if you're starting at the back of the pack. If he starts the first car 1 lap down, he'd be starting up in the 7th position. So,
but he's in
well,
the middle of the pack and he's got nowhere to go.
Yeah, good point. He's down pit road here in the 83, so it looks like he will not be taking the wave around here. He, along with just about everybody else that was off the lead lap, coming down pit road, and this is going to be about a 40-lap remaining race when we do get back under the green flag. And I guess the good news for Shane Terrian right now is if a caution comes out, there's only 1 car for him to beat, and that's Atlee Gray. Those are the only 2 cars right now that are -1 to the race leaders. Everybody else from 9th on down are 2 or more laps.
Yeah, but you gotta stay like it's turbo baby. It's turbo baby. I mean, you gotta stay clean, right? So here's for anyone at home that doesn't actually race on iRacing. Here's a little bit of information for you. You cannot get the caution if you're involved. You cannot get the lucky dog if you're involved in the caution being triggered, and the aftermath of it. You get an incident point, whether it be a 0x from slightly tapping the wall or tapping a car just lightly enough that it doesn't really affect them. That denies you the lucky dog. So, look, Shane Terrian's got to risk it all, and he's got to go for these sorts of things. He doesn't have it.
Not sure what's going on where with the 96 of Atlee Gray. That car just turned up into the wall.
Okay, alright. Yeah, look, I think something just happened there. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure what just happened there, but anyway. Oh, it's not been a good day. But, well, I mean, if that plays into anyone's hands, that's Shane Terrian's hands that it plays into. So let's talk about the 2 different options that Shane Terrian could have taken here. He could have taken the wave around. You're right. He's starting at the rear end of the pack, but you can cruise there. If the caution comes out, you can cruise. You've got places to go. You can just chill out. You're not forcing anything. If I'm in Atlee Gray's shoes, I would have taken the wave around. Why? Because Shane Terrian didn't. If I'm looking at those guys that are around me, and I go, can I beat these guys for the lucky dog? And I go, no, I'm taking the wave around. I want to get back on that lead lap and give myself a shot at some good points. So, look, I mean, different strategy plays, different reads. I think Shane Terrian thinks that there is going to be another caution here. And I think that taking the free pit stop, he was good to the end, especially with that caution. But
I think based off of the tire wear issues these drivers have had today, that under normal circumstances, you've seen a lot of drivers probably take the wave around there. But based on the fact that we were about nearly 50 laps into that run, nobody wanted to run the risk of being out there on those old of tires. As Trenton Jump gets us back underway, Braxton DeWeese follows him in second. Battle will be for third between Bronson Stafford and Tyler Stooksbury. Give it to Stafford. Now, closing on 40 laps to go. Are these drivers in full go mode now, or do they still have to conserve?
there's a little bit of conservation, but yeah, now it's just go, go, go. Remember, we're going to split this last run into 2 anyway, with about a 40-lap run, and that's what we're getting here. So, ultimately, with the runs that they've had so far today, they can push a lot harder now. The risk of the tires falling off is gone effectively. If you overdrive them, it's still going to be there, but it just takes a tiny little bit of management here. So I'm actually expecting these guys to go hell for leather and see what they can do. And look, ultimately, for the best racing scenario, this is definitely the best racing scenario. Drivers competing against drivers, not against trying to keep tires from blowing up.
Josh Altice, who brought out that last caution, still sits on pit road, repairs on that machine. So we had a rookie advance into the round of 8, going to have a lot of work to do to try and advance a rookie into the final 4 in the upcoming 2 weeks, as he will more than likely finish 14th place here tonight. We're looking at Tom Bourne. He got the free pass, which meant that he had to start shotgun on the field, 13 cars to pass before he can get up there to the race lead, where he was earlier on in this race, but he's had an up and down bit of an event here today at Dover. Missed pit road one time during a cycle green flag pit stops, came around and then hit the pit wall in the second attempt, so he's had to deal with that front end damage for just about the 75% of this race.
It doesn't look too bad. I mean, he is running a little bit off pace, but look, he's got himself an opportunity here, and I think that's what he's looking at. He's managed to grab quite a few guys and get his way back. Sorry, excuse me. Quite a few guys to get his way right back up there and onto the tail end of the lead pack. So look, I mean, race could have gone a lot worse, but reasonable. It's a reasonable sort of proposition. So look, we'll see how this goes from here. But he's got an opportunity to snag some points here, and that's what he's after.
At this point in time, heading into Las Vegas next week, your final 4 would have looked like this: Trenton Jump, Braxton DeWeese, Bronson Stafford, and Logan Brakey, because they were the only 4 playoff contenders that were pretty much on the lead lap for a majority of this race after that first caution came out. Now with Tom Bourne back in the lead lap, that mixes things up, and actually we're seeing here, this is the battle for 5th place between Brakey and Tom Bourne. So this theoretically would be for that 4th position in the playoffs heading into next week.
Oh, and think of the advantage that gives you over everyone, and think of the mental advantage. Next week you're now just focusing on your race. You've got an advantage over everybody else that's trying to get into the playoffs. Just by automatically already being there, they've got to come out and they have to perform, or else they're going home in a couple weeks' time. I mean, I feel for Brakey, because his race right now, it's right at the breaky point.
How long were you sitting on that one?
A long while.
I thought so.
Yeah.
That sounded like that was one just crying to be said.
I mean, you gotta enjoy a good pun. You gotta enjoy life, right?
Of course. Tom Bourne.
I don't even have children yet.
On board with the 54 of Tom Bourne. Looking there at the back bumper of Logan Brakey. This right now is just about the closest battle for position. You got about maybe half a second between Trenton Jump and Braxton DeWeese. But remember, on the long run, it really seemed like Braxton DeWeese's car was a little bit faster than Trenton Jump's. So we'll see if what's about a 3.5 car length gap between the two right now will start closing up the closer we get to the end of this race. And don't count out Bronson Stafford and Tyler Stooksbury. They're still within within striking range as well, still on the same straightaway every lap, albeit about maybe 10 and 12 car lengths back respectively.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's don't count Tom Bourne out of this yet either. I mean, let's talk about this last run. This is a mid to long length run in terms of this the overall race scenario. It's not a long length run. It's not a medium length run. It's right in that sort of that middle ground. So tire management, yeah, like I said, it's not the be-all, end-all, but it is definitely a significant factor in this final run. I mean, Tom Bourne has had to pass multiple cars to get back up here, multiple cars that are having their own races, that are racing other cars within the field for points. So he's burned up a little bit of his tire, and I think you're starting to see a little bit of that. He's just starting to fall off. That could be a little bit of the damage coming into play as well. But he's had a reasonable night and come home with a 6th place. That's fantastic for him. Bronson Stafford hasn't been able to really attack things on the long run, but he's had a fantastic short run pace. We get another caution here. All of a sudden, I turn and start looking at Bronson Stafford and I say, hey, maybe this guy could be the guy that's able to get it. Because remember, he was on the pole. So again, this race isn't over. We get a caution, things change dramatically.
Just joining us here, less than 30 to go at Dover in playoff race number 4, the first race of the round of 8 for season 3 of the Adrenaline iRacing League. Trenton Jump trying to hold off Braxton DeWeese. You're looking at the battle for 3rd between Bronson Stafford and Tyler Stooksbury. And as Scott alluded to, very caution-free race here. Only 2 yellow flags have come out, but they have come out at maybe the most inopportune times for several drivers. The first one coming out right in the middle of green flag pit stops. The second one coming out in the middle of green flag pit stops. And for a majority of this race, we've only had 5 drivers on the lead lap. And right now we sit with 6 drivers on the lead lap and maybe only 6 drivers with a shot of winning here tonight at Dover unless we have something crazy happen in these final 25.
Keeping an eye on Tyler Stooksbury. He's working over that rear bumper of Braxton DeWeese. He got it down the inside through 3 and 4 a couple laps ago, and DeWeese got a little bit loose coming off of the corner, and Tyler made sure that both of them were going to continue racing tonight. That's just good racing. Really good recognition that ultimately if you guys both make contact there, you're both out of the race. He lifted, he kept his car alive, he's kept Bronson alive, and ultimately I really think that Bronson's the kind of driver that he'll pay that back. If Stooksbury gets another run on him, gets down the inside, Bronson will just let it go just because he's been shown that respect by his fellow racer.
Also, big picture racing there for Tyler Stooksbury, realizing that Stafford is still racing for a championship. Stooksbury, unfortunately, is not after getting eliminated at Talladega last week. So, that might have also played a huge factor into the fact that Tyler didn't really force the issue there. Obviously, he wants that position. He would love to be able to put 2 of the High Five Racing Chevrolets in the top 3 here today, but to your point, racing very respectfully with a driver that has a lot to lose here in this round of 8.
Yeah, and I mean that's what it's all about. It's you've got to remember that every single car that's out on the racetrack, whenever you come across one, whether it be a car that's multiple laps down or a car that's on the lead lap, is fighting for position and potentially fighting for a championship. Every car that you come across on the track deserves that same level of respect, and they're racing their own race. They're telling their own stories through their movements out on track. They may have had a really horrid race. Their car may not be handling, but they still deserve that same level of respect as if they are on the lead lap and they're fighting you directly for position. Talking about pitches.
Oh my goodness! I wasn't sure what to call there. If it was a spin, if it was a save. But Bronson Stafford does keep that thing pointed in the correct direction after a big slide off of turn 4.
Yeah, look, Tyler's just on the comms as well saying, hey guys, I really did not mean to make contact there. All of a sudden, I just got a huge run in the middle of the corner that I hadn't had the last couple of laps. So I'd say Stafford, remember what we're talking about? Stafford's had really, really good short run speed. I think he's starting to fade that little bit. He probably made a mistake in the little corner. The car got probably a little bit tight, and Stooksbury's didn't. And, such as racing, but both drivers managed to come away from it. Do you know how skillful that kind of driving is on a high bank circuit? To drift the car, hang on to it, and continue racing after completely and utterly getting unsettled. So that's phenomenal car control there from Bronson Stafford, and there's a reason that he's in the championship playoff contention.
Yeah, concrete plays so much more of a different factor with the race car and its handling on a long run than an asphalt track does. There's not nearly as much grip in a concrete surface, and usually when you go to a 1.5 mile or a 2-mile track that's an asphalt track, a lot of the emphasis is put on preserving that right front. But at a track like Dover, a lot of emphasis is also put on preserving those rear tires, because the longer the run goes on, the more wheel spin you're going to have when you try and get back to the throttle. And you saw right there just how loose that car got and how he was able to hang on to that thing. Under normal circumstances, if that's any other driver, you probably have them nosing it into the inside wall.
Look, I mean, wheel spin and whatnot. If anything, that's probably helped Bronson Stafford just a little bit, because it would have loosened the car up. The rear is a little bit hotter. It's going to shift around a little bit. So if he can continue to just sort of manage that car, he'll actually find a little bit of pace there. The car will even out a little bit. He will lose a little bit of tire condition. So as towards the back end of this run, he'll lose a little bit more. But who knows? Maybe it just alters the handling the way that he wants it. I mean, he's starting to fall back into the clutches of Logan Brakey, though.
Brakey in that 29. You've also got the current driver, first car 1 lap down, of Shane Terrian, and right now, as these laps continue to dwindle away, 15 laps to go, about to be 14 laps when Trenton Jump crosses the line here. This obviously is taking away the window of opportunity for Shane Terrian to get a free pass, get back on the lead lap. So right now it looks like 7th place might be the best he'll be able to get here tonight. But again, while finishing a lap down doesn't sound great, to finish still up inside of the top 10 and still have 2 weeks to be able to build off of at Las Vegas and Michigan, Shane Terrian's not out of this thing yet with a chance of going into the Final Four.
What is he? He's currently sitting in, what, the 4th place out of our championship... No, he's 5th place out of the championship hopefuls. And he's only just behind Brakey as well. So even though even though these guys are like 4th, 5th, and 7th on the track, sorry, Tom Bourne, I think it is. Yeah, Tom Bourne, sorry, is just in between them on the racetrack. This is pretty much a championship battle because they're all going to be right there. They're all going to be grabbing similar points to each other. So, Terrian, I think, is very, very conscious that with 10 laps to go, he's not going to be able to grab back another place. He's probably not going to be able to grab back his lead lap. And something that he needs to be conscious of is that he doesn't get involved in a battle that he doesn't need to get involved in. Remember, he's going to race these guys the next couple of weeks and look to pick up those points. Something I always preach, don't make enemies for yourself out on the racetrack, because when the push comes to shove and the championship comes to its most high emotion end of the season, you want to be able to go out there and say, hey, I haven't annoyed anyone out on the racetrack. Some drivers do it. Some drivers do it, they thrive off it, and it makes them drive better. Ultimately, though, if there is another car out on that track and you've got an option of enemy or ally, I think it answers itself.
Starting to see Trenton jump, the back end of that car, starting to step out a little bit again there off of turn 2. But, you talk about consistency. Trenton Jump fits that bill. Yes, Shane Tyrion's been to victory lane 7 times this season, but Trenton Jump leads all drivers with 14 top 10s this year. He's tied for second most top 5s with 10. He also had that win back at Kansas Speedway, and right now he is looking to be the first driver to officially lock himself into the Final 4 at Atlanta in 2 weeks' time to battle for the championship. Less than 10 to go, and he's been able to keep about a second, maybe second and a tenth advantage between himself and Braxton DeWeese. Their lap times just about equal, and DeWeese is running out of time.
Yeah, I don't think DeWeese has got anything left. I mean, with less than 10 to go, he's out of the picture, he's right there, he's very close, he's ultimately putting himself such a huge margin ahead of the rest of the field in terms of grabbing that second spot in terms of the playoffs, but he's recognized it, he basically just backed it down. I think now he's just trying to lock it down. He's got a bit of a margin of the car behind him as well, he's not out of the picture yet. Something can happen, lap traffic's out on the track, but a really, really good race from Braxton DeWeese. You can't fault his performance tonight.
53, teammate to the 46. That's Eric Stamp getting out of the way. Trenton Jump going to put him another lap down. Stamp now -4, and this could actually play out into Trenton Jump's favor as well, because maybe a little defense could be played here if the 15 of Braxton DeWeese gets up to Eric Stamp, allowing the 56 to open up the gap a little bit more, because in terms of stability, it looks like Braxton DeWeese's car is hooked to the track a little bit better than Trenton Jump's. He's been out of shape out of turn 2 the last couple of times, really trying to get back to the throttle as soon as possible and not finding the rear grip that he necessarily needs.
Not finding the rear grip, but right now he doesn't need it. I mean, the biggest thing he can do right now is just keep looking after that car, Gap management. In the last phases of a race right now, he's got a second gap, right? We're down under 5 laps to go. This time by will be 4 laps to go. That's 0.25 of a second that the car behind needs to make up every lap. Now he'd clock another lap off. That's up to 0.33, so if he's gap managing, and that's all he needs to be doing right now.
Well, Trenton Jump, move of the race, might actually have all the way been back at the midway portion of this race when he and Braxton DeWeese both came down for green flag pit stops, but Trenton Jump came down 4 laps earlier, was able to leapfrog Braxton DeWeese, who had led the first half of this race. Caution came out in a timely fashion for Trenton Jump. He was still the race leader at the time, was able to win the battle off of pit road, and he's been able to drive away and keep Braxton DeWeese at bay. Only 2 more circuits when he comes around this time to the start-finish line. Trenton Jump looking for his second win on the season, which, ironically enough as well, would make him only the second multi-time winner this year next to Shane Tyrion.
Isn't that a statistic? Shane Tyrion has absolutely dominated this so far this season, and just things don't fall his way, and he's back in traffic. But again, like a class drive from Tyrion to still finish in 7th. He gave himself everything he needed to do to still give himself a top 5, a top 3 potentially tonight, and cards just didn't fall his way. Cards fell absolutely perfectly for Trenton Jump. 1 lap to go, white flag's out. I mean, he's enjoying this, but man, did he get lucky. Bronson Stafford was coming like a man on a mission for him, and a caution came out right as he gets to him. Look, you got to be quick to put yourself in a position to win from luck, but he got a lucky start tonight, but he still showed enough skills to drive away from Braxton DeWeese at the very end.
Welcome to the Final Four, Trenton Jump. He secures himself a championship opportunity in 2 weeks at Atlanta, winning here tonight at the Monster Mile of Dover International. Second win on the season, and maybe the biggest one of his adrenaline iRacing career, because now he's got some big picture racing to do in a couple of weeks, and he can go into Las Vegas and Michigan in the next 2 weeks completely worry-free. He knows that he will be one of those 4 competitors when we get to Atlanta.
I mean, what a celebration! He's going to enjoy that. You can say, yeah, look, he was Braxton DeWeese was a victim of a poorly timed caution, but you can also say the same about how many cars tonight. You've still got to leave
good
yourself.
half dozen.
Yeah, you've got to leave yourself with the opportunity to be able to do these sorts of things and still win the race. And I think, as much as some people can say it's about luck tonight and just things just didn't fall their way, there were still 2 cars that were effectively competing. Actually, look, throw Stafford in the mix, throw Stewksbury in the mix. There's a fair few guys that were still on that lead lap that were still in contention. He still had to drive away from them in that final restart, and he did it. And he did it very successfully.
And of course, Tom Bourne and Shane Terrian, they had the speed it looked like to be able to compete for this win, but circumstances during the course of this 200 lapper not working out into their favor, and it's going to make things very interesting heading into Las Vegas next week as well. We know Trenton Jump's locked in, but the points are going to be very close with DeWeese, Stafford, Brakey, Bourne, Terrian. You had those 5 all finish up inside of the top 7. And remember, all of these drivers came into this race all tied with 3,000 points apiece. So, with a track like Las Vegas and a track like Michigan, where there's still going to be a lot of close quarter racing, it could come down to minute points as to who could maybe get that 4th and final spot into the Final Four, and that is, with the scenario that we have 3 playoff contenders win these 3 playoff races.
Yeah, I mean, look, what a race! What a season! When you're coming down to the back end of a season like this, and somebody else has just lodged their first ever multiple win for the season. How many drivers have we got with wins this season? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 drivers with wins so far this season. And for Shane Terrian to have 7 of those, well, that's a dominating performance from Shane Terrian. But then again, you come into the playoffs, things reset, things change, the results change, what they mean change, and Trenton Jump would have come out tonight and he would have had the scenario in front of him. Win, and you are in. Box checked. Let's see him in 2 weeks' time. In 3 weeks' time at Atlanta. Can he check another box? He's now got... Look, he can come out and he can practice all he wants for the next 2 weeks, but ultimately that's not going to help him in terms of his championship contention. He's just got to have a cruisy couple weeks. Right now, he gets to start to put the practice laps in for Atlanta, and that is a massive advantage.
That's a great point, because he knows that he's going to be in the championship battle. Other drivers, a little bit of a question mark, and so not certain if they want to put all of that preparation time in for the season finale or not. So we'll be talking with Trenton Jump down in Victory Lane in just a moment, as well as our podium finishers. Want to remind everybody that this is the first of 2 broadcasts here tonight for Flatout Racing Network. In about an hour's time, we'll be bringing you coverage of the Clutch Drop Cup Series from Charlotte. But let's see if we can get a word here with 3rd place finisher Tyler Stewksbury, who had a very solid outing here tonight, spent pretty much the entirety of the race up inside of the top 5. Hey, Tyler, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us? I'll give it another try here. Tyler, you got us up here in the booth?
Well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it doesn't. Well, we'll see if we can get a hold of him here in just a moment. Might have actually been having some technology problems here. We'll see if we can talk with him in just a moment.
Alternatively, he could have done a bathroom break. That was a long race, too.
That's true. I believe we've got our 2nd place finisher here on standby, so let's talk with Braxton DeWeese.
Well, when technology works, it works, and when technology doesn't work, it doesn't work.
There we go. I think we got him.
We got him. We got him.
Hey, Braxton, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Oh, don't do this to us. No.
Oh, wow. Braxton, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh,
there we go.
do have him.
We got him.
We have life. We have connection. Braxton, a great run for you here today. Second place. We know that obviously you would have loved to have had that automatic golden ticket into the final four, but strong machine that stayed up in the top two all race long. But the big story we were hearing down there was you guys and tire conservation. How difficult was it to do that at a track where it's so abrasive on tires as Dover is?
Just try to be as smooth as you can, no matter what. It just Dover's a really big track for consistency, and make sure you hit your marks no matter what turn you're in or on a straightaway or whatnot. Just being able to maximize what you can, and also being able to also able to conserve your pace a little bit and have it on the long run as well. But like you said, the car was good, but it just wasn't good enough. Dirty air, it's just terrible. There's just nothing you can do in it. Even Tritton behind me, there's just nothing you can do. If iRacing would switch back to the V6 tire model and get their head out of their butt, then get stuff together, we could have had an awesome finish and whole awesome race there. I know the race was awesome, but I'm talking about all over the place cars, finding speed there, finding speed there. I find that interesting where cars can look around and, find that speed, but also not wear them tires out if you do it right. So disappointed. I think we led the most laps. I'm very disappointed. I really, really like this track. I felt like I could have advanced my way through, but it is what it is.
I mean, you've got to applaud the alternative strategy that came out of Trenton Jump this evening to jump into the pit lane, early on that last green flag run that last green flag stop that we saw. He was looking for an advantage over you. He found it, and then the caution went his way. Alternatively, I mean, you were looking for the advantage over him as well with going that 4 laps longer. You look for advantages any way you can find them, and sometimes the cards fall your way, and sometimes they don't. That's just racing.
Yeah, it's the luck card. I hate how people. I'm just disappointed. I hate the luck card being in this for the win. I really wish that strategy could have played out and it could have went green. I really feel like it could have been different there. But didn't go my way this time. We'll see if it goes my way next week.
Still certainly a good points day for you, Braxton. As you mentioned, I believe you did lead the most laps, so there's some bonus points coming your way there. Second place finish ahead of other playoff contenders. So, right now you would be ahead of those drivers trying to point their way into the Final Four. And of course, you got those tracks coming up here with Las Vegas and Michigan. We know that obviously, if you got a fast car, you're able to maybe take the checkered flag there and lock yourself into the Final Four there. So, best of luck there in those two upcoming races. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, I want to thank all the family, friends, and supporters that tune in, watch, support me, and root me on during the race and all the races. I also want to thank the sponsors that help me out and support me for iRacing and what I want this to become. So I want to thank Zimmerman Concrete, Ron's Pizza, Bennett's Publical, Ravenwood Enterprise, Scott Martin at Jeff Schmidt, NASCAR Technical Institute, Blaze Designs, and King Grant Paints. I want to thank you guys for broadcasting. I want to thank High Five Racing. I want to thank GP Diecast. I also want to thank Rapid Response. I've been tied in loose off. Yeah, I think that's all of them. I know there's a lot, and I appreciate all of you guys. We'll see if we can win next week.
That's Braxton DeWeese, P2 here tonight at the Monster Mile of Dover. And now we're going to see if we can make contact with our third place finisher, Tyler Stooksbury. Tyler, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us this time? Looks like might be having some microphone issues here. Yeah, I think definitely there's some microphone issues going on there. Oh, did we got him this time? Tyler, you got us?
Yeah, got me.
All right, we got you this time. Man, good run for you here tonight. I know, obviously, the heartbreak of getting eliminated from the playoffs last week at Talladega, but still, what a way to come out here and show just how strong of a machine you've got. You stayed up inside of the top 5 all race long, got that podium position with about 20 laps to go, and that car looked really good, but what little more did you need to be able to be up there with the 46 and the 15?
Well, there's a handful of things, really. I mean, last week I missed because I was at the Coda race and all that. And, coming into this week, I just wanted to have a good run. So I put a ton of practice in. And I think I was a little too good at saving tire. So after the first run, I was hearing reports other guys were down to like 2% on their right front and stuff. And I was like at 40%. So, and I was reeling back in the leaders at the time and stuff. I think I just overdid it with the tire saving a little bit. And I think that was about the case every run. I think had I made a few different strategy calls, Trenton kind of undercut that one green flag cycle we had. And that really gave him a huge advantage. That gave him the lead pretty much. So, I think probably should have come in a little early under green flag stops. And then that last restart, I just didn't get going like I needed to. I was just the car had a little bit more grip than I thought it had. So, getting off the line there. So handful of things. I felt like I was faster than most of the guys. I felt faster than Braxton and Trenton on the long runs for sure. Just did a little bit too much tire saving, which is unfortunate, but it's something you work on.
I mean, we can talk tire strategy all day, every day, but to be able to have the tires still underneath you at the back end of that first run of the night, when that caution comes out, you've set yourself up for the race, you've set yourself up to have a 2-stopper, and then a caution flag comes out and knocks out effectively half the field. I mean, that's... You got to feel for those guys, but that's also part and parcel of what you plan for in your preparation leading into a race.
Yeah, I felt really good. Especially like there towards the end of some of those long runs, I really felt like I could drive circles around most other guys I was around. So it definitely helped for sure. Probably could have qualified better too. If I screwed up my first Q lap and it kind of affected my second one a little bit. And, that track position was just super important because it was so hard to pass. Like it was nearly impossible to get around people, I felt like.
Now, Tyler, we ended up having last week at Talladega a non-playoff driver take the checkered flag there. We got Las Vegas and Michigan coming up. So what do you think? Do we see this 19 car in victory lane snipe away a Final Four position from some of the remaining playoff contenders?
It's certainly possible, especially Vegas. I feel, earlier this year when the official series were running at Vegas, I felt very good there. I didn't have any good runs just because, people like to lose some talent when NIS comes around. But yeah, I feel good about Vegas. Michigan's such a wild card for me, but hopefully we can put something together at Michigan. It's a fun track, but I'm really got my crosshairs set on Vegas for sure.
That's Tyler Stooksbury, third place here tonight at Dover International. Congratulations, Tyler. We're now going to turn the microphone over to you for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Beautiful. Yeah, go check out Tight End Loose Off on YouTube. It's my YouTube channel. We're like encroaching on 4,000 subscribers. Pretty good stuff. I try to put good content up there. So go check that out. Thanks to the guys at High Five Racing. We share notes with each other and all sorts of stuff, and they help out tremendously for me. So thanks to those guys. And yeah, I think that's about it for me.
Tyler Stooksbury, P3, here tonight at the Monster Mile. Once again, congratulations, Tyler. Best of luck here down the home stretch for the remainder of the season.
Thank you.
Let's go down to victory lane. Second time that Trenton Jump wins this season, the Adrenaline iRacing League, and first time in the playoffs, automatic ticket into the Final Four. Hey, Trenton, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
And we could see that car was starting its victory celebration off of turn 4, swerving side to side. Man, you go into Las Vegas, you go into Michigan, knowing you're battling for the championship at Atlanta. How much of a weight off your shoulders is that?
I tell you what, I'm gonna sleep good the next 3 weeks. That's for sure. But yeah, it's good. I didn't expect to win today, but as soon as we made the undercut on it was the second to last pit stop, I kind of was just trying to give myself a shot. And I wasn't real happy that the last caution came out, but I think in the long run it benefited me because as soon as it got tight, I had the lead and I didn't have to worry about dirty air or anything. So I'm real pleased. I got the patriotic car in Victory Lane on Memorial Day weekend, so happy for that.
Oh, look, I mean, you can say that it wasn't running the way that you wanted to, but you pulled a strategy masterclass. I mean, you pulled out the undercut, you got the lead, you forced Braxton to have to come back to you. Just as he gets to you, the caution flag flies, you lead him off of pit road, and that air, you were running in Braxton's air most of the night tonight. You know exactly how difficult it was. What was your mindset coming off of that final caution?
Honestly, I knew earlier that it was possible that the pass could happen. I just didn't need to make a mistake. Well, then my teammate, who I gave a steering ratio to set to, he said it was getting tight, and I felt it was getting tight. And then I heard a few other complaints that it was getting tight. And then as soon as I started just, it was a half a tenth, and then a tenth, and then it was 2 tenths, and it was 3 tenths. And I put him over. I'm like, well, he's getting real tight in that dirty air. So I mean, I was scared, at first because he had been out front most of the day. But as soon as I started pulling away, I was just like, smooth sailing home. As long as we don't get a yellow, it's mine.
Obviously, when we come to a track like Dover, we know it's very abrasive on the tires. So not only were the tires chattering here tonight, but apparently a lot of the drivers were as well. We heard that the tire wear was taking you guys by surprise quite a bit. Now, you had the fortune of the first caution coming out, not having to come down pit road, but there were a number of drivers that just couldn't make it onto pit road entry. Did that put some worry in the back of your mind as you were preparing for what was going to be your first green flag pit stop?
Yeah, I didn't really have too much worry about it, but when I heard them guys blowing tires, I was watching my force feedback bar and it was getting quite a bit of feedback, but I'm not hard on my tires ever, so I wasn't really too worried about it, but I was just, being cautious. First caution came out, it wasn't a big deal, but the one green flag pit stop I made, I was just trying to be sneaky about it and not get ran over, and I just about got the pit wall and I just about sped, but I got it woed down and I got that huge undercut on Braxton, and I think it was Tyler that was running third at the time, so I got lucky for sure.
Well, the timing of the two cautions here tonight definitely had to be all about execution, and you definitely were able to execute here tonight. Congratulations on that victory. Second of the season, locking yourself into that championship battle at Atlanta. We're now going to give the opportunity, Trenton, for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I just want to thank Justin at That Color Teal Designs for painting the car, our associate partners, Rowdy Energy and Circle B Diecast on the team. Everybody on Color Teal Motorsports, the admins for this, and you guys for broadcasting this week since our other broadcaster couldn't be here.
Well, we know one of the drivers that's going to be battling for the championship in 3 weeks' time. Trenton Jumps, your winner here tonight at Dover International. Congratulations on the win. Go and enjoy it. And as you said, get some nice rest there for these upcoming 3 weeks preparing for Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, boys.
Well, no doubt about it. We talked about when we came on the air here, Scott, that we had a race previously about a couple of weeks ago here at Dover. I don't think we quite expected to see the abrasiveness of the tires coming into this race, though, just based off the previous experience we had. And I think you may have your mic muted again.
It's definitely not what we were expecting, when coming in tonight. I wasn't expecting the tires to go that way. A few of the drivers are saying, look, there's been some tweaks, I think, to some of the R16 setups and some of the fixed setups, and Dover's one of those ones that you either get the setup like bang on or you're just a mile off, and it was consistent for everyone, and that's what we talk about. We talked about at the top of the show. Look, setups, they're different. They treat you different. You've got to treat the car different. You've got to work on things, but it's an adjustment everyone's got to make as a driver. It's consistent. It's equal across everyone, and sometimes the setup doesn't fit the track, but you still got to make that adjustment. You've got to drive. Some guys did tonight. Some guys overdrove it. Some guys looked after their tires too much. That's racing, boys. I mean, they've adapted to it, and what a race that we ended up being able to witness.
Now, for the most part, most of our playoff contenders, our remaining 8, still had solid outings here tonight. A couple of drivers finishing outside of the top 10 in Eric Stamp and Joshua Altice. However, the points have been updated already. Only 11 points separate Logan Brakey, fourth in the standings, from Joshua Altice. So it's still very close with 2 strategic type tracks coming up on long green flag runs potentially at Las Vegas and Michigan. So going to be interesting to see how the final 4 are going to get set at the conclusion of those 2 races. And of course, LSR TV going to have the call next week, continuing down the home stretch of this season at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But privileged to call this race here tonight on Memorial Day weekend and see Trenton Jump be able to lock himself into the final 4. Scott, appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Oh man, look, fun, interesting, and a different opportunity this evening to see some different style of racing. What a beautiful evening to watch motor racing.
Absolutely. And if you guys haven't gotten your fill of racing here tonight, we've got in about a half hour the green flag flying at Charlotte Motor Speedway as we continue on the season for the Clutch Drop Cup Series. So be sure to keep it here on the Flatout Racing Network. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for joining us here tonight at Dover for the Adrenaline iRacing League. We'll see you guys later on here tonight for the Charlotte race for the Clutch Drop Cup Series as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.